In this video assessment, I will be going through the movement and screening for athletic performance and injury in sport, specifically football. This assessment is to see if there are any muscular imbalances, muscular recruitment issues, as well as to assess the limitations in the joints or any impairments that may occur in the kinetic chain, whether it is foot or ankle, the knee, the lumbo-pelvic hip complex, shoulders, or upper body. This can all lead to a decrease in force transference, as well as lead to major injuries. In addition, I will be supplying my client with a specific training plan to help with his areas of improvement, improving his performance, as well as keeping him injury free. Before we start looking at my client's squat form, we will first look at his posture. Things we will be looking out for are the thoracic spine, rounded shoulders, anterior pelvic tip, and posterior pelvic tip. You want to make sure that you're not swaying your back or that you do not have either lumbalordosis or thoracic kyphosis, as these have been proven to be very painful. Furthermore, making sure that your head is not leaning too forward and is symmetrical with your spine. As you can see here, my client's posture is near enough perfect, with no imperfections with his spine or head placement. The squat is a fundamental human movement pattern that involves nearly every muscle in the body. Squatting improves fitness, performance, and mobility for daily life tasks. Being able to squat with good form will help you activate the muscles needed for basic sport movements like jumping and pushing off the ground. Knowing how to activate your glutes, quads, and abdominals all together is one of the keys to being able to produce speed and power. This is essential, especially for a football player, because you need pace and power to be able to run past defenders and protect the ball when the incoming defenders are advancing. So let's look at Nay's form from the front. Let's look at his feet and how the knees are traveling symmetrically. As you can see here, my client's heels are not firmly planted on the ground, causing an imbalance in his form. It's almost like he's about to fall forward because of this. You can also see his knee shaking at times, which is causing unstable movement. Let's now have a look from the side. He's not able to achieve parallel depth because his heels are not firmly planted on the ground, causing his back not being neutral with the rest of his body. He is relying heavily on his toes for any sort of stability, which is very dangerous and could lead to injury. There could be many reasons for this poor squat form. These could include lack of stability, lack of range of motion, tightness in his working muscles, joint dysfunction, lack of strength, lack of coordination, or maybe his muscle firing sequence is incorrect. But that is why I am here, to help him improve these areas and maybe looking at his readiness to train. We will now look at ways to improve his squat depth. This way he can squat below parallel, which means your hip joints will be below your knee joints as you squat. One of the reasons why this could be happening for my client is because he is squatting with a weak core. If you squat with a weak core, it is not a solid foundation, which means reaching maximal squat depth is unlikely. Another problem my client could be having is tight calves. As you can see here, I have placed 2.5 kg plates underneath my client's feet to see if he can have better squat depth with the weight. As you can see, he has much better stability and squat depth with the plates helping him. This means my client's calves are in deep tight. A corrective way to help him with this is to foam roll his calves before squatting so that the calf muscles are much warmer and loose. And hopefully this will enable him to squat much lower. We progress to the overhead squat, and as you can see by my client initiating movement, you can see that his heel is not firmly placed on the ground, and as a result of this, he nearly falls over because of the weight of the bar in the air. He then proceeds to taking his shoes off to try and maybe help this imbalance in his form, but to no avail. As his heels are still not his main foundation of stability, his placement of the bar over his head is not helping him either, because it is a bit behind his head as opposed to right above it, which is causing an imbalance. From the view at the back, you can see that he's having a lack of movement in the shoulders, which looks stiff. And as he is going down, he twists his knee inwards a little bit to maybe help with stability, which is not good. His heels are more planted on the ground, which is why his squat depth appears lower, but there's still an imbalance because of his knee placement. During this example, he pulls up and says he's feeling some discomfort in his groin. This leads me to wonder if he properly stretched that area, as he shouldn't be feeling that at all. There are several points which have become alarming to me of the safety of my client during these squats. Therefore, we will not be progressing this type of squat further with weight until he is more comfortable with no weight and his form improves drastically. The next test is the hop and hold, where my client must jump at least half his height. Nay is landing with his leg relatively straight, which indicates quadricep dominance. You can also see that he's using his arms to balance, which is making his landing inconsistent. The next test is glute bridge, where I am assessing his glute activation. During the test, I am asking him where he's feeling the contraction, upon where he is saying he's feeling it in the hamstring area, which means he's not able to fire the glutes without conscious effort. I then instruct him to squeeze his glutes more, which then allows him to feel it in his glutes as well as his hamstrings. You could progress this test into a one-legged glute bridge, which could test the imbalance between the left and right leg, but I didn't feel that like my client would be comfortable doing this. We then follow up this assessment with lunges. As you can see in this test, he's creating a degree less than 90 degrees between his femur and tibia angle, which indicates that he's shifting his weight forward. After short instructions, he comes back and we can modify the lunge by creating 90 degrees in his front leg, shifting the resistance more to his posterior muscles. My client has efficient lunge technique, so we can then progress this into weighted lunge to make it more difficult and challenging. This type of progression can improve balance. It is evident though that there is room for improvement with this test, like there was for the hop and hold. My client does though appear to be using the correct pattern, good stable movement, and has the right asymmetry. The next test we will undergo is the knee to wall test. This will assess my client's dorsiflexion of the ankle. Tape measure was used to mark the distance away from the wall. He was able to do this at 5 centimeters, so he proceeded to 8, which was also successful. Always making sure the heel is always on the ground at all times. The test was failed at 11 centimeters, so the range of motion for the left leg is 10. We repeat this procedure on the right leg, and the range of motion on the right leg is the same, 10. The next test was to assess core stability. My client was told to be in a position where he could stretch out his frontal core. If he was able to hold this position for 45 seconds, this would prevent his core from tightening up and preventing stitches. My client was able to do this, therefore enhancing his chances of his core not tightening up, which could be sometimes a painful experience. The next test is a bent knee hip rotation from the ground. My client tries to bring his knee as close to the ground as possible. As you can see here in this example, his right knee is more flexible than his left because it is closer to the ground. You can see the differences here in the video. The next test is a leg scorpion rotation, where we'll be able to see the differences between the right and left leg. The client is told to try and reach his leg as close to either hand as he possibly can. My client has great range of motion in both legs, which can be seen here. After the movement and screening assessment, I came up with an intervention exercise plan that will help Nay to work on his areas of improvement, improving his performance, as well as keeping him injury free for the future. The first exercise I added was the deadlift. This will work on his strength and glute activation. After the deadlift, I added the Bulgarian split lunge, which will focus on his balance improvement as a unilateral exercise. This can be done within 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Next was the Romanian deadlift, or if my client was feeling uncomfortable doing this, could be replaced with the stiff-legged deadlift. This will primarily work on his glute activation and hamstring flexibility at a lower percentage of a 1 rep max. Hip thrust will be worked at a lower percentage of the 1 rep max. This will truly work on a movement pattern. Later on, it can be progressed to a higher 1 rep max percentage of 80%. This can help with glute development. Body weight back extensions can be added to help with strengthening the back and help prevent injury in the future. Hip stretches and mobility drills are there to allow the joints to move freely within their designated ranges of motion, preventing back pain whilst boosting athletic performance in the process. Deadlift is a great exercise because it has compound movement, which means that it's working multiple joints as well as the big muscle groups. Because the deadlift has a demanding nature, Nay starts off with no weight so we can see what his range of movement will be like. Both feet are placed roughly shoulder width apart. The aim here is to move the bar in a straight line over the midsection. This is done whilst maintaining neutral parallel stability. Nay is very efficient in this movement, so we could add weight in the future to progress this move. Here we have the unilateral exercise of the Bulgarian lunge for my client to improve his balance. Extra resistance could be used to make this exercise more difficult. An example could be the client holding onto a dumbbell weight whilst going down in motion. 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps will be sufficient for this exercise.
To make your form better as for a footballer, innit? Your plan to make your form better as for a footballer, innit?
What's the marks on it as well?
Marks for your understanding of the exercises.
What's the marks on it as well?
Marks for your understanding of the exercises.
What's the marks on it as well?
Marks for your understanding of the exercises.